This week on the Brody File, our salute to the governors of America.
Hello, Governor.
Governor Romney may have never made it to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but will another governor be able to do so? Our exclusive one-on-one interview with Texas Governor and former presidential candidate Rick Perry. 2012, when you ran for president, some lessons learned.
Well, if you're going to get in, you need to get in early.
Also, he's like a character out of Wayne's World.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
That's right, we're not worthy. Scott Walker is the rock star Republican governor from the great state of Wisconsin. Jenny in the B Block goes one-on-one with the top cheesehead.
We don't have to have everybody agreeing on every single issue in order to move forward as conservatives and people like me as Republicans. But we do need to largely be singing out of the same hymnal.
Also, a blast from the past as we dip into the Brody File archives to hear from one of the most fiery, passionate governors in America, Jan Brewer from Arizona.
I'm Norwegian, and so I got a little Norwegian backbone. And if people get me in a corner, sometimes I do get a little feisty.
Republicans may not have the White House, but they're rocking the governor's mansions around this great nation of ours. We're going to explore the Brody File is next. And welcome everybody to the Brody File. Well, look, we have a special show for you this week, one that we think you're going to tell your neighbors and coworkers about, maybe even your dog. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin with not the superheroes or the Avengers or the Fantastic Four. No, we have something even better. Let's get busy with the governors of America. All right, let's look at some of the numbers across America when it comes to governorships. Here's the breakdown. 30 seats are held by Republicans, 19 by Democrats, and then there's one independent governor. Always an independent, right? That makes, by the way, for some serious conservative legislating state by state if played right. Now, as you know, many times it is governors who go on and become presidents. One of those former governors who tried was Mitt Romney. Now, we know how it worked out for him, right? So, look, he's not going to be running for president ever again. Instead, it has led to the Goodbye Romney Tour. That tour began at CPAC, where he spoke to thousands of conservative activists this year. Instead of lamenting the past, though, Romney actually invoked the crucial work of governors as the way back for America.
I would urge us all to learn lessons that come from some of our greatest success stories, and that's 30 Republican governors across the country. They're winning elections, but more importantly, they're solving problems, big problems, important problems.
Mitt Romney, definitely a classy guy, and we say that despite the constant denials for an interview from his campaign. We stalked him as best we can. We tried. Speaking of stalking, cue up the music and graphic because the Brody File is at it again. While we were at CPAC, we stalked Texas Governor Rick Perry. In a very candid conversation, we talked about everything under the sun, including whether he'll run for the presidency again, the state of conservative politics, and the issue of gay marriage. The CPAC speech, talk to me about what you overall here wanted to communicate as it relates to the conservative movement going forward from here.
Well, they needed to hear a number of messages. Number one, that the conservative world and the conservative message and the conservative movement was still very strong, and that everything's going to be all right. I've kind of hammered home that you need to nominate conservatives if you're going to win elections. Mm-hmm. You can't do it with moderates or even, moderate conservatives. Americans want the real thing.
I am curious. Look, you're governor of Texas. You're not governor of California. But boy, you've had a message for those folks out there. What are states like California doing wrong in your estimation?
Well, that's kind of an easy one. When you tax at when Phil Mickelson stands up and says, "Hey, listen, they're taking 63% of my money, and that just cannot be sustained." That's a powerful message, and certainly he's not the only one. When you have small businesses that takes months, if not over a year, to get a simple permit to be able to build or do some work. I mean, the unions and the strangulation by regulation in California is just, it's incredibly onerous. So they're doing a lot of things wrong.
Let me ask you on a social issue, on traditional marriage, which you have been very strong, obviously a strong supporter of. Are you concerned, along with many evangelical Christians, that the train is starting to leave the station? And what do you do? Look at 18 to 34-year-olds in this country. And 60% plus say, hey, it's all right. Does this concern you at all? Or what can the Republican Party do in this situation?
You just have to stand up and say, listen, what's truth? I'm a evangelical Christian, and marriage is between one man and one woman. Now, does that mean we hate anyone who decides they want to have that type of lifestyle? No, not at all. I don't want them to make that mistake any more than I want them to make a mistake about other sinful nature that would be out there. But do not get confused that this is a sinful nature. Now, you're not a Christian, you don't buy into that, that's your call.
2012, when you ran for president, some lessons learned.
Well, if you're going to get in, you need to get in early. I would suggest to you that you look back in history, almost all of our nominees have run at least once or been involved deeply with campaigns, going back all the way to David Eisenhower. So you got to get in early, and this is something that you parachute in the middle of August, and somehow or another, when there's already 8 very capable individuals running and splitting up the supporters out there. So the best lesson I learned was that, be healthy. I certainly don't recommend having major back surgery 6 weeks before you run for president. It may not work out quite as well for you. But get in early and do your work, and then see how all the chips.
Is there a fight within the Republican Party? Is there a fight right now over conservatism in the direction of the Republican Party? Do you believe that?
I don't think so. I mean, conservatism and the values of conservatism they've always been there. It's kind of like biblical truths. I mean, you may not agree with them, but they're the truths. So conservatism is about tax policy, it's about regulation, it's about legal policy. And it's really that simple. I mean, this is not rocket science. If you want to allow a state or a country to prosper, you let people keep more of their money. You don't strangle them with regulations. You don't oversue with an onerous legal system, and then you get out of the way.
That is Rick Perry here on the Brody File. During that interview, you heard Rick Perry take some digs at California. He's trying to lure companies in the Golden State to relocate to his Lone Star State. Well, Jerry Brown, the governor of California, this guy has really gone heavy on the taxes out there. His Proposition 30 raised the state sales tax by 1/4 cent for 4 years. It also increases income taxes for people making at least $250,000 a year. Brown says the increased revenue is needed so as to prevent billions in cuts to education and other programs.
Tough choices. And you have to live within your means, and that means you have to not do everything you want to, but you also have to raise more money. We did raise a tax on all citizens.
Jerry Brown definitely taking his lumps from some out in California. However, look, his approval rating is better than it's ever been at this point. Speaking of approval ratings, there are 4 Republican governors who are on the outs with conservatives right now. They used to be popular, but a few things have changed for Chris Christie, Bob McDonald, John Kasich, and Rick Scott, and we call them the outsiders. So, what are their transgressions? Well, first of all, Bob McDonald. Take a look at him. He passed a transportation bill. Great. However, it ended up becoming the 2nd largest tax increase in Virginia's history. Not good. Chris Christie has multiple problems. First of all, he's accepted the Medicaid expansion under the president's health care law. And by the way, a handful of other Republican governors have also done that. He's also had that love fest, remember that Hurricane Sandy photo op love fest with the president right before the election. And he also ripped Republicans for not supporting a disaster relief bill faster. Now, as for Ohio Governor John Kasich, He too is implementing Obama's Medicaid expansion, despite railing against it for years. And the same thing with Florida Governor Rick Scott. The Tea Party feels betrayed because he's going to accept that Medicaid expansion as well, even though he campaigned on blocking Obamacare implementation if he was elected governor. Now, it should be noted that except for Rick Scott, those other three outsiders we named actually have pretty decent approval ratings. Scott is the only one in real trouble. You know, we got a lot of support from the evangelical community in 2010 when he ran for governor. Well, our Paul Strand and Steve Jacoby interviewed him a couple years ago where he talked about his Christian faith.
I'm a devout Christian. I grew up in the Methodist church. My wife grew up in the Baptist church. We got married in the Baptist church. We've been active in our church all of our lives. Our kids have been active in our church. We picked our churches when our kids were younger based on where they would go, because we wanted them to be active. So absolutely, my faith in God is very important to me. And it helps me. One, I have to rely on. I don't know how you could run for office if you weren't, if you didn't believe in a supreme being. In my case, Jesus Christ. But it's absolutely very important to me.
We are sure Rick Scott is praying for re-election down there in Florida. We're going to see how that all turns out. All right, when we come back, the man conservatives love to love. Jenny in the B Block goes one-on-one with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. He's becoming a cult hero. That's next. And welcome back to the Brody File. All right, we continue this governor-themed show by welcoming Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker to the Brody File.
Hello, Governor.
Hello, Governor.
Hello, Governor.
You go, girl.
Yes, that's right. Jenny in the B Block is here with her exclusive sit-down with Governor Walker. Now, hold on. Before we bring in Jennifer, we just want to be clear here. The Jenny we're talking about is the top-notch Jennifer with Sean, not this Jenny who is a bit challenged.
Hi, my name is Jenny, and I'm going to teach you how to be the best cheerleader. You ready? Let's go!
Jenny, we can only hope your interview with Governor Walker went better than Jenny in the locker.
Ready? Okay. David, as you know, I am a big cheesehead when it comes to professional football, so Governor Walker and I got along just fine. The governor of Wisconsin is 45 years young. He's a tested fiscal conservative who's keeping an open mind about his future. In fact, he says only God knows what's in store for his political career. Coming off two failed presidential races, some say the grand old party is in disarray. When asked about divides between the Republican establishment, Tea Party conservatives, evangelicals, and libertarians, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker paraphrases the Gipper. In politics, someone you agree with 80% of the time is an ally.
We don't have to have everybody agreeing on every single issue in order to move forward as conservatives and for people like me as Republicans, but we do need to largely be singing out of the same hymnal.
He's the son of a preacher who's still influenced by his father's communication style.
As conservatives, we think with our head, but that's how we communicate it, which is great from a process standpoint, but we need to talk about things from our heart.
So growing up in the pew with your father in the pulpit has helped you politically to share your message?
Well, it did, because again, it's the logic of the way my father would share the message, but also an emotion.
He's become a conservative hero after living to tell about the extreme cuts he made to Wisconsin's budget to pull it out of a $3.6 billion shortfall. And he's still at it.
I'm making changes going forward that say if you're an able-bodied adult, you're not a senior, but you're an adult who's able to work, if you want to get food stamps in our state going forward, you either have to work or you got to be signed up for an employment program. Now the left would say, oh, you hate the poor, this is all about making it more difficult to get on government programs. I challenge that right back and say, no, I love the people of my state. I love them so much. I don't want them to be indebted to the government for the rest of their lives. I want them to find it easier to get a job, not harder to get government benefits.
For Republicans to win in the future, Walker says they must be optimistic, relevant, and courageous.
I think in the last presidential election, unfortunately, a lot of people knew what the threat was with this president, what would happen over the next 4 years if he was reelected. But there wasn't enough given as an alternative to say, and this is why we're for something, this is what we'll do.
Thank you so much, Governor Walker.
And go Packers.
Appreciate it. Go Packers, yes. Now, I told Governor Walker he was welcome to announce his future plans right here on the Brody File. David, he declined, but he did tell me that it is his two sons, their generation and future generations that inspire him to lead. And regardless of what the future holds, he says he wants to always use his gifts to help make the nation the best it can be for them.
Well, great stuff. And more importantly, what would even be better stuff if you got to put on that cheese head? I mean, do you, how do,
Gladly and proudly. Here we go, David.
Look at that. Oh, that is...
Boom.
Look at that. Come on, that's a look. That's a look right here. All right. Thanks, Jenny. We're back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File. All right, time for a popularity contest. Who are some of the most popular governors in America? Well, look, it's an important question as we gear up for the 2014 midterm elections. Who's vulnerable and who is not? Here are some safe and relatively popular governors who are up for re-election. Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, love that name by the way. Georgia Governor Nathan Deal, what's the deal? Iowa Governor Terry Branstad, Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, poll numbers through the roof, New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez doing still pretty well in New Mexico, and New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, hey. And, oh, I forgot to tell you, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin as well. Now, that's not an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of some of the safe ones. Now, to the vulnerable governors. Here we go. These five are in danger of losing. Connecticut Governor Dannel Malloy, love that name. Florida Governor Rick Scott, we talked about him. Illinois Governor Pat Quinn. Then there's Maine's Governor Paul LePage. And Rhode Island Governor Lincoln Chafee. He's the independent, by the way. All right, time now to go into the Brody File archives. Yes, a blast from the past. And sorry, it doesn't mean we're going to give you a slideshow of the Brody File's Jewish upbringing. You can rent Neil Simon's Brighton Beach memoirs if you want that experience. Instead, we're going to share with you some of the interviews we've done in the past with governors, past and present. You know, in the last couple of years, we've talked extensively with Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, Congressman Mike Pence, who is now the governor of Indiana, and of course Mike Huckabee, who used to be the governor of Arkansas. Our conversation with Jan Brewer was actually really fascinating and interesting. She's a firebrand, to say the least. She tosses political correctness out the window, and here is some insight into how she operates.
I describe myself as trying to do what was right for the people of Arizona. I got involved in politics because I believed that I could make a difference. And my mother always told me that as you go through life, no matter what you do or how you do it, you leave a little footprint. And that's your legacy. It's what you have done that has made a difference. And so that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to always do the right thing, putting politics aside, and be honest to my own core beliefs, because I think that's why people elect me. And I'm Norwegian, and so I got a little Norwegian backbone. And if people get me in a corner, sometimes I do get a little feisty.
Well, Jan Brewer doesn't mess around. And, you know, Mike Pence is another guy who doesn't mess around. However, he does it in a much different way. You know, this governor, this Indiana governor, is more like a political version of NPR. Calm, soothing voice, but definitely opinionated. You know, he's a governor who may even run for president in 2016 or beyond, and that's something we talked to him about a couple years ago in his congressional office. This is the part of the interview where I ask you the obligatory 2012 question, and this is the obligatory part where you just say, oh, you know, honored to be considered. So let's just go through the formality. All right. So are you thinking about 2012? Go ahead. I know it's coming, but are you thinking about 2012? Have you ever heard it asked that way?
Well, you know, I'm very humbled anytime we're mentioned in that regard. I really am.
Yeah. Has it been at least part of the conversation at the dinner table? A little bit? just a little bit? After the college talk and all of that? Has it come up a little bit?
Well, when I get asked by school kids if I've ever thought about running for president, I have one answer.
And what is that answer?
No more and no less than any other kid that grew up with a cornfield in his backyard.
The Field of Dreams answer.
One of the great things about America is that anybody can be anybody. Even a small town kid from southern Indiana who grew up with a cornfield in his backyard can dream.
Mike Pence, keep an eye out for him in the future. All right, then there's the always jovial, soundbite spewing Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas. Now, if you want to be informed and entertained at the same time, Huckabee's your man. His faith is central to his governing style, and that's something we discussed with him in the past.
My basic philosophy of life is take yourself less seriously, take God more seriously. And by that I mean that some people think of themselves as so important, but I have to remember that before I ever drew my first breath on this earth, the world got by without me. And long after I'm gone, the world's functions will still go on. You know, if I died today, mail would still be delivered tomorrow in homes across the country. Banks would be open, commerce would take place, traffic would run in a normal flow. No matter how important any of us may think we are, truth is the world was here before we were, it'll be here after we're gone. That's why we can't take ourselves so seriously. But you know something? There was no world before God created it, and when God's ready for it to close, He'll bring it to an end. That's why He needs to be taken seriously. We don't.
Huckabee, Pence, Brewer. Democrats might call them three blind mice. Conservatives think of them as the three wise men. All right, wait, actually, two wise men and a wise woman. We're back in a moment with our Oy Vey moment of the week, and here's a tease. Hitler and soccer don't mix well. Back in a moment. And welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. All right, before we leave you, we have a story that reeks of anti-Semitism. Hence, it's a perfect winner for this week's Oy Vey moment of the week. So Greek soccer player Georgios Kadidas, hope I didn't butcher that name by the way. Anyhow, he scores a goal for AEK Athens. We want to show you the celebration. First the goal, take a look at this. Nice shot by Georgios. The celebration, the shirt comes off and oh boy, get ready. Here comes a salute to the crowd. Whoa, what was that? Can we rewind it? Oh boy, rewind the tape. There you go. Let's see what he did there, folks. That's the Nazi salute. Oi Gavolt! At least the Greek Football Federation thought it was the Nazi salute, and so guess what? They banned Georgios for life. He can't play in Greece anymore. Georgios pleaded ignorance, saying he had no idea what it meant. I mean, how about just doing a funny goal celebration like this from Iceland? Now that is a lot better and funnier than the Nazi goal salute. That does it for this week. Until next time, everybody, God bless. Have a great week.